In this video, we are going to be doing blown flowers, which is really fun, really beautiful, and easy. So we're going to be doing it two ways. We're going to be doing it one with airbrush, and also the other way will be with canned air. So we have those two items. I will hold up the air compressor that I have after I'm done showing you everything else. I have these tools. They're either called micro applicator tools or they are dental foam brush tools. The colors I'm going to be using today are all in the Tim Holtz, and I have two mixatives. So I have a copper mixative by Tim Holtz and a snow cap. Also the citrus, wild plum, and aqua and pitch black. So these are also called Ranger or Tim Holtz. I have two tiles which are 3 inches by 6 inches. They're subway tiles is another name for them. I have a black and a white one. Alcohol ink markers. I have two colors. They're both green and they're by Spectrum Noir, but you can use any green alcohol ink marker. And we have some alcohol in a cup here. So I get my alcohol from Costco in a 4-pack, $2.50 each. So that ends up being $10 for my 4-pack. So with this, I'm going to quickly show you my air compressor. It is from Canadian Tire. It's called Mastercraft, and it is also called an airbrush kit, airbrush compressor. You can get them at Princess Auto, Canadian Tire. This one's set at about 51 PSI, which I seem to like. There's a little gauge at the top here that you can see, and that's where you will be able to find out how much PSI it has. If it has too much, you're gonna blast your inks right off your page, and if it doesn't have enough, they're not gonna move enough. So with that, we'll get started on our first one, which will be an air compressor alcohol ink flower. Also, if you don't have these micro brush tools, you can use a paintbrush, but because I have these, I'm going to put them here. A finer, finer paintbrush also works with that. So anytime you're working with tile, you want to make sure that you give it a wash, even if it looks like it is clean. Sometimes at the factory there can be fingerprints or dust marks, and all those things are enemies of fluid art. So this is already dry. You gotta love alcohol for the quickness of how it dries. And so what I like to do is I like to do 2/3 sky and 1/3 grass. So I just take maybe a few drops of the limeade. I guess that was maybe about 4 drops. And 6 drops up here. And we are just going to take any kind of, a cotton ball works really well, or a napkin, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna go 2/3 of the way down with this, and then 1/3 of the way up with the green. What that's going to do is, sometimes your airbrush flowers don't work out. So if you have a background that took you 10 to 20 seconds to do, then it's, you know, if it doesn't work out, it's easy to erase. Sometimes it's not worth it to just keep beating a dead horse. So our next thing we're gonna do is I'm taking the wild plum, which I know works really well for the flowers. So I'm taking the wild plum here, and I'm gonna take 3 dots in the same area. Maybe I'll even do 2 because I put it so high up. And then I go right above it, about 1.5 to 2 inches above, and I just give it a little spray like that. And that's going to create like a cute little flower. So it's going to grow back in, and maybe even one a little bit further in the background there, and I'll just do 1 dot there. So there are our flowers, and you can see that it's creating that nice little center that we want to see. It doesn't always do that. This one looks like it's not gonna grow back in and do as nice of a job, but that's okay. So the next part we want to do with fluid art, I like to work from the top down. So I am actually going to take this copper, and anytime you have a mixative, you give it a little shake. And I'm putting it on my micro applicator, taking a little bit off because it gets a little bit thick. And in here, I'm just going to make some little stamen, I think it is, and just go in here and create these little dots. This guy is kind of funny looking. He's, you know what, I might actually give him another spray. So let's just do one more and see what happens. So you can see you can always do 2 in there and hope it gets better with the second one. That's kind of cool. So I'll just let that one, well, it should be all right now. So I'm gonna do this little stamen in here as well. Okay. All right. So here is our dotty little flower. Maybe to give it a little bit more dimension, I'm going to put in just a little bit of pitch black. This might make it a little too dark, but I can always go in with the copper again. But I just wanted a little bit of thickness in there. And put some black in here. And you can even dip it in alcohol once just to kind of thin this out and make it kind of blend around a little bit more and give it, thin out that black a little bit because it is so thick. So I just dip this micro applicator into the alcohol to kind of blend it all together. So there is the center of our flower. And then the second part is to give it a stem. So we're just gonna take this, and it's nice to give the stem a little curve, even if you're going in the middle, to just kind of come down like that. And this guy, maybe he's coming over here like this. And there's your stems. You can even have some flower buds in there if you want to add more stems and add like a little flower bud. But for this, I think it looks good just like that. It's always a little bit thicker at the top, so you can go over that again. This is Spectrum Noir, and the color is JG6. So you can see I use it a lot. I spilt some Blanco Blanco on it. And I could just leave this like this and it looks nice. You can add some flowers if you want, either with using your micro applicator again or a brush. What I'm going to do is just give it a little bit of color. I'm gonna see first if the dots will work on this. So let's give it some dots. Well, the dots don't make perfectly round. Sometimes some colors go into the other color a little better, but this is just going to give it a little bit of whimsical. It is a abstract style piece, so it's very whimsical. And I just dipped this in alcohol, so these are going to make lighter and slightly bigger dots. But that's kind of what we want. We want to have different colors and different textures in there. And this is just instead of grass. You can put grass in your particular painting, but I am doing some dots up here. So this is fine. I actually really like that. I would leave this, but I'm going to show you one more thing you can do if you get a lot of splashback. So sometimes when you do your flowers, you get a lot of splashback. So you can just go in here, and I've just taken the aqua, which was what I used initially, and I can go in and just make these little dots and go up there. Start when it's really thick, start in the middle, and then work your way toward the flower so that you don't pull out too much flower. And make sure when you go around the stem, you go lightly. And I'm just gonna go in here. And you don't even have to hit the flower. You can leave a little bit of a border there without going in it. Same with the stem. You don't really want to hit the stem because it does look a little funny if the stem gets starts growing inwards. And this is just giving that sky a little bit of texture. And I have some splash up here, so this way it removes it. I would have left this, like I said, but I wanted to show you one more thing so that you can try to wash out that splashback color if you got some splashback from spraying your flowers. So there you go. Here is a very simple, you can even do some dots up here with that same tool. There's a little bit of green in it. This guy has green. and that's okay. So dotting in some blue in there if you want more dots, or just go back in and take the dots out. You can just keep going with this. And it's just gonna get thicker and thicker as that ink builds up. So just something to think about. You can always fix it. The nice thing about tile is it goes to 0. So if I was to use Yupo, I would have stains if I tried to remove some of this color. But because I'm using the tile, I could fully erase this. And that's okay too. So here you go. Here's some blown flowers for you to enjoy and play with. I hope you enjoyed doing it with the air compressor if you have one. Our next one is going to use canned air in case you don't have an air compressor. So here we go. I'll leave that guy off to the side. And this time I'm going to use a black tile, and I'm going to show you a whole different kind of method as opposed to the first one we did there. So washing off that tile again, I had some stains on it, and make sure that the alcohol just gets wiped off, and before you start that you don't have any alcohol on there. So this time I'm going to use mixative, the Snowcat mixative, and I'm also going to use the wild plum. If I was just to use wild plum on here, it's not going to work because it's so dark. So with this one, I'm going to start with the Snowcat and do 2 in there and then 1 more. Okay, and then just send this going that way. 2 more. Whoops, it's not very particular, so we're okay just sending that up. You can see all the different colors that the canned air kind of pulls out. You're going to do this until you find a flower that you like. And if it doesn't work, then you just erase it because once again, it's tile. So you can do this as many times as you want and keep going with it. So that's starting to look a little bit more like a flower. Maybe I'll pull a little bit out that way and 1 inside it. So it's an abstract flower, so you're not going to get the exact petals you want. This is just creating it until it turns into something nice. So I think I might leave it there. I can even color up my base a little bit more if I want it to have a little bit of a little more thickness there. And then I'm going to take some green, and I'm also going to, I'm going to paint on the green stem. All right, so I have a little cup here that I can put my green paint in. This is a very light green. I could have probably got a little bit darker here, but that's okay. This citrus is quite nice. So what I did was I mixed citrus with white, because once again, the citrus would not show up in that idea. So there is your little, you can put some you know, leaves on it if you like, and just bring it down. And this one we want to paint the stem because it's so crickety already that it kind of, that looks like it's reaching out to somebody. So maybe we'll just make that a full. And you can play with this as much as you like. And you can see it just creates like an extra dimension when you use the black. It's quite an awesome thing. So these are our 2 blown flowers, very, very different, but both really beautiful. So you can play around with that as much as you want.